love the way you put it, and avoidable circumstances. This is what we call inclusivity.
Yes.
Yes, and I need to be in that panel the next time. My name is Judy Okite. I wear many hats, but today I will wear the Free and Open Source Software Foundation for Africa hat as the IG coordinator. I would like to invite my panelists as we discuss the emerging issues. So I'll request Victor, Grace, Henry Maina. Yes, I was told she's Henry Maina. And Bob. When I say to the panel, I mean Bene. Sorry, thank you.
But there's plenty of water. If you're thirsty, there's water on that corner. There's also a lot of water on the other side.
Okay. I request us to please stand. I know you've been sitting for a while. Please stand and stretch. Please stand and stretch. Yes? I am. Thank you for being obedient. When we look at the program, we see the emerging issues that have been listed down. But again, we realize that throughout the sessions, emerging issues have come up. We have emerging issues of net neutrality that is not there. We have emerging issues on local content. We have emerging issues on security and privacy, inclusiveness and diversity. And basically, I think the entire session has emerging issues. So this is what we will do. The good thing about this is we are starting from the end. We are going to talk a little bit about the WSIS. That is why we are here at the Internet Governance Forum. We are going to touch a little bit on Internet and human rights. Declaration on Africa Internet Rights. I don't know how many of us have heard about it, or whether we know that it is there, or who in Kenya represented us on that. And then we will hear the IANA transition. For some of us, these are very new terms. So I'll just quickly begin by asking, how many of us have heard about the WSIS? The WSIS? Okay, I'm an even WSIS. WSIS. Oh, depending on which school you went to. WSIS. How many have heard WSIS? WSIS? Okay, thank you very much. How many of us have heard about the IANA transition? Okay, a good number. Bob, I think you're well placed. Declaration on Africa Internet Rights. Okay, Henry Maina, you have some work there. Well, she said she's Henry Maina. Riva, thank you. Internet and human rights, that is quite general. So I will quickly give the opportunity to Grace to take us quickly through the WSIS review. Please, as you have seen, many people have not heard about it. So if you can just give us a brief from where it started, and then quickly take us to WSIS 10.
Actually, I'm impressed. I didn't expect the number of hands that I have seen. It's quite a number that raise their hands. WSIS, that is the World Summit on Information Society. And this is the first session of we refer to it as WSIS. The first session of WSIS was in 2003. Then it was followed in 2005. And in 2005, when it was concluded in Tunis, sometimes it is referred to as the Tunis Agenda. And it is at this forum that they set the tone for debate on internet and ICTs. And then an action plan was set out. And in that action plan, several action lines were determined, and in which governments signed to start following in terms of internet and ICTs. I and Victor have been reviewing that, and we actually realized that the Kenya government has done quite well in that implementation. I don't know if the Kenya government realizes it was fulfilling WSIS action plan, but it has performed very well in terms of connectivity, how many people are online, e-government, e-platforms, even multi-stakeholderism, and that sort of thing. So it is in WSIS that they set out a definition of internet governance, and they also mandated the establishment of Internet Governance Forum, and in this forum also called for multi-stakeholderism. So that's the first time, it was, they talked about it. And they allocated roles and responsibilities to diverse stakeholders, and these were people who participated in that. So it's namely governments, private sector, civil society, regional and international organizations, etc. So WSIS was instrumental in initiating the concept that all stakeholders have a role to play in internet governance. Further, it initiated the process towards enhanced cooperation. And we have seen that the ITU and UNESCO have been at the forefront in implementing different aspects of WSIS. So the WSIS process itself is an ongoing platform for engagement of stakeholders around the common goal of people-centered, inclusive, and development-oriented information society. So this year, WSIS marks its 10th anniversary. And in December this year, the UN General Assembly, UNGA, will hold a 2-day high-level meeting that is referred to as WSIS plus 10. So, WSIS was concluded in 2005. We are 2015, so it's some sort of celebration or some review after 10 years. And this meeting is set out to evaluate the progress of WSIS and decide its future. And most probably this will also likely shape UN debates on internet and ICTs in another coming year. So we don't know how long that will be, maybe in another 10 years. So with the high-level meeting in December will also afford an opportunity to revisit the outcomes of WSIS, assess progress made, and look ahead at challenges in the coming year, because in 2005, for example, nobody had anticipated the growth in mobile uptake that has happened now. Nobody had anticipated the way the internet has evolved and become part of our life, or how mobile telephony has just taken over our lives. So, there will be some of those issues coming up. And then, again, some of the critical issues under review include the renewal or the extension of the mandate of the Internet Governance Forum. So it's going to be doing 10 years, and it's up for renewal. Should we continue with Internet Governance Forum, or what next? There's also the issue of multi-stakeholder participation in ICT policy making. And there will also be commitment to promotion of human rights online. So the IGF mandate expires in 2015, and the decision to renew will be made in the context of WSIS 10. So roles and responsibilities of different stakeholders in internet governance will also be another issue that is likely to surface. And this has come as a result of Within the last 10 years, then, like when it came to enhanced cooperation, governments were saying they're the ones that are mandated to make laws, and the other stakeholders were saying, no, you actually only came in at a certain point, and this we have to do it together. And some of the arguments that have gone around that is that you have ICANN, which is managing the domain, you have the IETF doing the standards together with ISOC, and so, you know, this really has to be shared responsibility. There are also issues regarded as unresolved within the current WSIS framework. For example, a lot still remains to be achieved in people-centered, inclusive, and development-oriented information society, as envisaged by WSIS then. So there, you know, within the 10 years, new divides have emerged where you have, you know, either certain countries being seen to hold more power than others, certain stakeholders being seen to, you know, to have clout than others. So these are issues that are likely to also be discussed. So the result of WSIS plus 10 level end of this year in December will result again in a negotiated text agreed by governments. Again, that's a meeting of governments, and we know that Kenya has been in the, you know, at the forefront, and since the government hasn't said anything, we are assuming that the Kenya government will be among those governments that will support the review of the IGF. Thanks, Judy. I think I've done my 5 minutes.
You've actually done 10. Yes, I was timing. I would request the others, if I say 5 minutes, meaning you talk like 3 minutes and then you express yourself for 2 minutes. Please. I'd like to give this opportunity to Victor.
Good afternoon. I'll do this in 5 minutes. Anyway, so I work at the ICJ, whose mission basically is to promote human rights, the rule of law and democracy in Kenya, through the application of legal expertise and international best practices. So I'm going to talk about our impressions about internet and human rights in Kenya. But you know, first, just to underscore that human rights are universal. They're inalienable, indivisible, interrelated, and interdependent. And it's important that it be understood that they are inherent in us because we are human beings, and you can't take away some rights, or you can't enjoy. You need to enjoy all of them collectively, but also to understand that there are also limitations to human rights. With regards to the relationship between human rights and the internet, we know that the internet is now a space, and also is a space where human rights ought to be respected. So human rights offline and human rights online should be treated equally. At the same time, there is a question of access to internet, which we are increasingly seeing that is also should be treated like a right, that we should have access across internet should be available to all people without discrimination. And just also adding to the discussion about net neutrality, that for human rights, to enable the promotion of human rights, technology ought to be neutral, and also should not discriminate for purposes of ensuring that every person has access. With regard to Kenya, we've noted that there is significant progress. Just mentioned that cousin Barry was around, and yes, red states and blue states. You'll notice that he said Kenya is on the move, and I think that with regards to internet and human rights, we're also making progress. The internet has been useful in mobilization for positive action. We've seen a lot of call to action, KOT on Twitter, KOT News at 9, when the media shut down, promotion of human rights, the He for She campaign, Justice for Liz, and also accountability actions such as the big protests which are mobilized using internet. There's also increasing access. I mean, even from the GS Summit that we had, there's a lot of innovation, including innovation that promotes human rights. For example, we have platforms such as the Ochieng, which help in promoting and protecting human rights, mapping of violence against women, monitoring of hate speech, monitoring of elections. And what we're saying is that we need more of these apps and more collaboration with the human rights practitioners in terms of how developers and tech community can support promotion of human rights using technology. At the same time, we're seeing use of internet to promote accountability, to highlight corruption, to highlight also human rights violations, bad business practices. I remember Nakomat was monitored online, right? So also elections in Kajiado, you remember, money was being dished around. So internet was used to promote, monitor elections. But at the same time, the challenges that we also are experiencing. The questions about access. I mean, internet access is not available everywhere. We don't have fiber anywhere. Affordability issues, we saw the USF fund. Issues that we need to consider. Also with increasing innovation and interest in trade and investment within the IT ecosystem. We've just spoken about local content and IP. One of the things that has already been mentioned is that we need a very strong and robust intellectual property framework. So there is need for reform in the copyright and patent and how we view them is last presentation about access to information and knowledge, especially in education. So we have issues around fair use and how can technology be used to promote fair use of knowledge resources. Questions around intermediary liability, especially with regard to copyright, because we have the sharing generation. Now we just click and share. And for copyright especially, it's problematic. And we need a more robust legal framework to protect our innovators. So that's the economic and social, economic issue, economic right issue. At the same time, there are negative uses of the internet that also affect human rights. For example, terrorism, hate speech, criminalization of legitimate expression, cases of offensive speech, which are also present online. There's a line there between how offensive should be offensive. We have those regulations in the KICA and NCIC. Incitement, violence against women, which have been perpetrated online against children, trolls, harassment, sexual exploitation and abuse, persecution of LGBT communities, limiting or denying liability, for example, the accept and move on hashtag, which had some people who are experiencing violations. So we need to promote ethical and equal uses of the internet, so more education is needed. An area of concern is also increasing violations of civic space. We now have shrinking civic space, so we're seeing a lot of censorship, limitation of freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, rights to assembly, increasingly becoming a threat. And these are sort of like roadblocks on well-established human rights principles. And also we're seeing that also for civil society, where internet is being used to muzzle civil society. ICJ has been labeled as an evil society as opposed to civil society. So those are attacks on civil society. Media censorship, where now people are more held back, like you're not expressing yourself fully because of the consequences that might come. You saw the amendments to media legislation and the fines to journalists for reporting certain kinds of information. So fines of up to 1 million shillings. So and 20 million for the institution. So those ones also act as censorship measures. We have malicious hacking. You remember the incident about a European company hired to attack a Kenyan blog. We also have keyboard warriors on social media. You see something and you'll have 20 trolls attacking. So that's an area of concern. When it comes to privacy, we need to ensure that people have access and can maintain anonymity. We are increasingly putting our private information online. So, as the tech community and the service providers, what kind of protections can you give for your users to secure their private data? We don't have legislation on privacy, and that has been mentioned, and it's something which the government needs to take into consideration, even as they also have the e-citizen and all the online services coming up. Encryption, as has been spoken about, I think we recommend that if you're keeping private information, then it's important that it is encrypted. There's also new technology that we don't know how it's affecting rights, cloud computing. You're putting all your information online, so has also its implications for copyright and privacy, big data. For example, IBC is collecting all our biometrics. How safe is that? We have the e-citizen that's spoken about it. The possible impact of new technologies such as the Internet of Things. We now have a lot of connected devices. I think you saw in the States, someone stopped a car, using a mobile phone, accessing the brakes and things like that. So what are we doing about this? How can we ensure the right to life, for example, if these tech devices can be used to stop a car which is driving in the street? And also questions around how the jurisdictional issues around data storage. I know Safaricom moved the FOSSFA from Germany to here. How many people are also keeping data in other jurisdictions? Is it important to have legislation on the location of user data? Should we encourage Google to set up the local servers, or what should we do? So, moving on, we need to have remedies for some of these actions. I think areas which I mentioned, legal reform. Also that when developing websites or tools, that it's important to have avenues for redress. If you have a website, you need to have areas where people can report abuse or flag things, for example, which are offensive or things like that. Capacities for law enforcement, you have challenges in investigation. Even of human rights violation happening on your station. Have you ever seen a computer? So if you need to extract a WhatsApp message that was sent to you, it's a challenge even for evidence collection, maintaining the chain of custody for electronic evidence. This is a challenge for human rights. What is the role of national human rights institutions in monitoring and creating awareness for human rights online? They have done a lot for offline human rights, but they also need to be aware that there's this new space which is not being catered for. Restrictions, we saw the security laws amendment, anti-nastia legislation, which also is shrinking, taking us back some steps, and what we're saying is that any restriction on human rights, maintaining with one moment, should be necessary and proportionate. Cybersecurity frameworks are critical. Our security begins with us, no? That should also be the same for cybersecurity. Innovation, it's important for innovators to also take into consideration human rights, take a human rights approach to development. Consumer protection, we've spoken about it. Role of intermediaries, harm reduction within the networks. We will encourage to have more transparency reporting. Also to provide tools for protection of children who are using the internet and for education within schools. Public participation, multi-stakeholder has been spoken about, and mostly just to encourage that we try to work towards a free, open, and secure cyberspace, which is beneficial for all of us. Thank you.
Let's give him a clap. At least Potter had to find his way somewhere in there. But we don't see. Now when you stand between people going to celebrate for Gor Mahia having 3-1 against Khartoum, it becomes very challenging. So let me just say that before Victor says it. So I have the floor. I will request, please, our other panelists to to please keep it brief so that we can have more interaction from the people. I am seeing people writing seriously, so I'm expecting like 101 questions. So please, let's respect that. Riva, if you could tell us about the Africa Declaration, where it is at currently. What are the things that we need to be worried about? And what are the things that we need to push in that declaration? And how much time, or where is it at exactly? Thank you.
So I don't go through it anymore? Just answer the question. Okay. I find it fitting that we're discussing the African Declaration on Internet Rights and Principles at the very end, because it brings together a lot of the principles of internet freedoms that we've been talking about this whole day. I'll just run through it very quickly. It was actually born at the 2013 Africa IGF, which took place in Nairobi. And so far we have 47 African stakeholders who have endorsed it. Because it's a framework for which we want internet policy to be made, to some extent there is, it's still open to discussion on, as a working document, but it hasn't changed much since 2013, so that's the status we're at. Very quickly, it seeks to bring about a lot of the principles that have been expressed in many different fora, including the UN Human Rights Council, the UN General Assembly, on privacy, internet rights in general, the African Declaration as well. So it recognizes a lot of these efforts and seeks to inform future internet policy by guiding them. So there are 12 principles in total. Number one is on openness, and we talked about this in the session on inclusivity and multi-stakeholderism, the need to promote pluralism through the internet, which is related then to access and affordability, which is principle number 2. It makes guidelines for making infrastructure to promote fast internet. Number 3 is freedom of expression. We talked about this extensively in cybersecurity, and the need for any restrictions to be grounded in law, necessary and proportionate, and pursue legitimate aim. But also freedom of expression touches on intermediate liabilities. So yes, we recognize that you can have takedown procedures, but there should be also judicial oversight. And then also freedom of expression touches on media freedoms, the need to protect journalists, and then decriminalize certain journalistic offenses like defamation, and repealing other laws such as sedition, which restrict freedom of expression. Principle number 4 is on right to information, which again we talked about in tandem with freedom of expression, but in development, which is what the African Declaration seeks to promote, access to information, open data is necessary for development. Kenya was able to join the Open Government Partnership because it put in budgets online, and a lot of ASAM organizations are seeking to monitor how counties are doing by how open they're making their budget-making process. So the internet is a platform for making this information available. On principle number 5, freedom of assembly and association, it recognizes that this is a space for people to associate and to speak with one another. Principle number 6, cultural and linguistic diversity, recognizes that we should promote minority languages. There should be methodologies for promoting minority language users on the internet. Principle number 7, right to development. I think I had spoken about that earlier. As the use of the internet to empower people to promote development, like with budget making. Principle number 8 on privacy. It goes into detail about personal data protection and surveillance. We only have a bill on data protection that hasn't yet been published, but the principles give guidelines on how data protection should be enforced in terms of what kind of information should be collected for how long, and notification on it, notification especially when it's been abused, lost, or stolen. Also surveillance, we talked about it, as a infringement on the right to privacy, and the need for accountability of the intelligence services that are surveilling you, and there being no justification for mass surveillance. It should be targeted, there should be reasonable suspicion, and judicial oversight, as you said. Principle number 9 relates to security on the internet, which is touched on a little bit by, I think, the other discussions. And number 10 on marginalized groups, the need to recognize that women, children, persons with disabilities should also have access to the internet. The internet should be for all. So how do we get everyone involved in accessing it? And then principles 11 and 12 relate to right to due process and the democratic internet governance framework. So in terms of due process, other appeal mechanisms is the public interest overall, the override, and in terms of democratic internet governance, allowing as many people as possible to participate in any policies relating to the internet. So that's the declaration in a nutshell. Where we're at is that we're seeking to make it as popular as many people aware as possible. If you look at the end of the declaration, it has specific recommendations for different stakeholders, for governments to endorse it, for civil society also to endorse it, to popularize it, for media to popularize it, and for stakeholders in internet itself, internet governance, to make use of its principles, because it brings together a lot of what is out there in a much more succinct form. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was perfect. You've done in record time. Thank you very much. Now, the other hat that I hadn't worn was one of a teacher. We have heard that there are 12 principles. I want to see those who are actually listening. So please, what is the first principle?
Openness.
Hello? Yes?
Openness.
Openness. Yes? The second principle? Yes?
Access and affordability.
Access and affordability. It seems there was only one guy who was listening. Okay, thank you very much. If I could ask you, can we get this document, and is it open for discussion? It's online. Is it open for discussion? Who can discuss it?
And then those.
And send to who?
It's online.
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 You put it online.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So you just.
And you find it and you work on it.
You work on it and you have everything there.
All right.
You can see who's endorsed it, you can see how to endorse it, the contact is there, information about how it began there.
Okay, thank you. I'll encourage us to please look at it, because one of our cultures as Kenyans is we always react. We are a very reactive community, and so when it has already passed, then we say, no. Nani alipitisha hiyo hatukuona. So please, I encourage us, please, let's go online, let's check on what is there, read it through. I always tell people, when you're making your decisions online, think of 10 years to come. Don't think of now. Don't think of you. Think of 10 years to come. The decision that you're making, whatever it is that you're putting online, would you still like it to be there 10 years from now? I'd like to give this opportunity to our last panelists on ICANN Transition Board. As you saw, many people are rather familiar, so that is good. But for those who are not, please briefly take us through and why we are talking about it now. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. And just very quickly picking up from my left. So think 10 years, and we are reactive. So two important elements you just mentioned. How many of us heard about digital migration? How many of us knew the notice we had? It was 10 years plus, isn't it? And was it a surprise when we had a deadline just the other day? But to some people it was, and we went to off the court in the land. So, exactly. I normally want to use this as an analogy to what is happening in the internet space, especially on internet government, and specifically on the IANA stewardship transition. Because, as Judy says, we are definitely going to realize this thing when it is done. And by that time, like Victor mentioned in the morning, the only thing we can tell you is sorry. So what is this IANA stewardship thing? And what can we do between now and in the next 40 days before everything sort of gets finalized? So over 1 year ago, specifically on the March of the 14th, 2014, the US government made a very important announcement to let go of their oversight, if you want to call it that, but specifically stewardship of certain internet functions that are managed by ICANN. And these are called IANA functions. Most of the time, IANA is confused for another company within ICANN, things like that. IANA is a function, a set of functions that ICANN executes. And ICANN was tasked to convene the global community to really discuss and come up with a proposal on how best to manage the post-US government oversight over ICANN. Because we know the whole day we have been talking about the internet. And the internet, we have realized, is very important. And therefore, we should also be keen on who is managing what on the internet, isn't it? Of course, ICANN is just one of the many organizations and entities and individuals that are performing certain functions. So, when this announcement was made, the committee came up with a process and something called the IANA Stewardship Coordination Group was formed, which was a really inclusive group, including Africa representatives in it, to guide the process of coming up with this proposal. Now, at the same time, as the discussions were ongoing on coming up with this specific proposal to replace the oversight of the US government over ICANN, the community felt that it's also important to think of how to make ICANN more accountable once the US government gets outside of that relationship. So, two processes were initiated. One focused on developing the transition proposal to the US government, specifically the NTIA, and the other one focused on how to enhance ICANN accountability. I know we all have heard about FIFA and where you take FIFA with your issues. So it's an opportunity to make sure that once the US government leaves ICANN's oversight role, then ICANN has or remains accountable, and the community is supposed to tell ICANN how it's supposed to remain accountable. So two processes, one led by the ICG, which then came down into three operational communities that are usually the major clients of IANA services. So that are the numbers community, the names community, and the protocols community. Basically, names and numbers, but of course they need protocols to work. So what is the status? Because we have 5 minutes to discuss 1 year worth of work. All those communities have finalized their proposals on the ICD side. And the names community submitted the proposal almost last month, June. The numbers and the protocol community submitted their proposal a bit earlier, actually, by January. And as we speak today, actually, I think it's over 30 minutes ago, the interim final proposal that has been put together by the ICG has just been posted. So if I had 1 minute, the only thing I could tell you is to now go at this very last moment because all these proposals have been developed through a very extensive and open and inclusive process, yet still not very many of us, I want to say not very many, because there was at least some people from Africa who made some contribution. But largely, Africans' contribution is yet to be seen there. And we are a population of 1 billion people, and this important decision is going to be made without our input. I think it would be very sad. So I think we have a very, if I would call it, a last opportunity. We don't like reading most of the time, it has been said many times. And this document does not make it easier because it is around 200 pages. But I can tell you that the reason we have parliament is for representation. And for you to effectively represent any group, be you government, be you civil society, you must be armed with facts. Now, you can only be armed with facts if you have read. Even Jesus used to say, it is written. So, I am inviting you at this stage, and after 1 year of proposal development, please go online, IANA ICD.badi, download this document. It is less than 1 hour old. It's very fresh. Please read what has been proposed, because once the final comments are collected from the community, nobody will come back and say we were not consulted, like the digital regulation issue. We are consulting you now. So I think this is the rallying call I want to make. Of course, on Monday, the accountability focus team will also issue their sort of final document. We are sorry they are big documents at this. We are forcing you to read. But I would really, really urge you, especially the Kenya that we are known of, to at least read this document and at least say whether you agree with what has been put there. If you don't agree, this is your chance to say you don't agree with clause X, and say it, and it will be heard, and it will be read, and it will be taken into consideration. Otherwise, we might forever be asked to keep our silence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bob. A saying was said that if you want to hide something from an African, you put it in a book. Now that book has come online. And so everywhere we go, we realize we have to read. In the morning when I came in, we were talking with Grace, and Mwendwa was the one who was telling me, just accept. You know, when I was asking him about the internet access. And of course, it has to ask you whether you accept the terms and conditions. And he was like, just click accept and go on. And I was like, what am I accepting to? And we were just saying, and Grace was just sharing that at once upon a time she downloaded these terms and conditions, and it was about 22 pages, and she just accepted. I mean, between reading 22 pages and accepting, let's accept. And 35, sorry. Unfortunately, that is what we are doing. We sit and we discuss about privacy and security, and there's information out there, and the question that will come back to you is, did you accept? And you'll say, yes, I did. And so, did you know what you are accepting to? No. So what happens? So please, just as Bob has said, it is a big document, but I'm sure we spend much more time on Facebook, on Twitter. Yes, please. Someone tell what was it? CNN. Someone tell CNN. Yes, I know we spent the whole day. It will not take you the whole day to read that document. So please, I urge you. The future for this internet really depends on you. And unfortunately, where we are moving, at the rate that we are moving at, is in about 3 years, you may not have an opportunity to come back and say, can we correct that one? Can we recorrect that one? So please, do it for the sake of yourself and for the sake of your children, if I am allowed to say that. I'd like to take this opportunity to give us a chance to ask our questions. I'm almost ready to say that. So please, let's line up and let me see how many, and I'm not even done. Please, let's line up. Let's line up and ask our questions. Thank you. Go ahead, Fiona.
Fiona, just a quick comment on the two sets of documents that Bob has talked about. I'm one of the 2 Kenyans who've been part of this whole process from last year. We do conference calls up to 6 hours a day of conference calls, overnight, whatever time, because we're working on a global clock, and we've put in a lot of effort. I could summarize them for you, but it is more important for you to go through them, to check whether what I have done is a good job, and give me your feedback. And just a trick on being able to go through them, what we have done is we've also attached to those documents, there is what you'll find as the explained graphics. We have tried to put all our views in a cartoon, because we realize we are having challenges of translation in terms of reaching out to the entire global community, and pictures explain a lot and help people understand. If nothing else, please go through the X-Plan diagrams of what it's all about, because it's really cartoons depicting the relationship of the whole proposals. In all the proposals, there is that X-Plan annex. Go through it. If you can't read at all, go through it. When you go through it, you'll find that you have to check on other areas. Please read through, and let us aggregate our input as Kenyans and be able to say, as a region, this is what we really feel, this is what we think, and we shall be more than happy to carry your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Please do it for the sake of Fiona. At least.
Can I add something?
Yes.
Yes, so to really help you understand, if you really don't want to read at all, but you can listen. So on 7th of August, there will be a webinar to now let you just listen on an explanation of what that document is all about. So you have 3 options. You can read the whole document, you can read the explained graphics, very, very nice graphics. And you can also listen to that webinar. It will walk you through the whole document in a summary on the 7th of August from 7 to 9 UTC. Just add 3 hours to what I put there, 7:00 to 009 o'clock. Yeah.
The question goes to Victor. You say that there are some challenges of accessing this internet in some areas. What are the mechanisms? What can we do to create that? Because it's a big challenge. What are we coming up with?
Thank you.
Good evening. My question goes to
Can you introduce yourself?
Mesha. I'm Mesha. And my question goes to Raymond. You talked about the definition of internet and human rights. Now, you spoke of diversity and how internet can promote minority groups, and at the same time you talk about how it can help to strengthen marginalized communities. So can you please highlight more, because the two principles, it's like they're all intertwined together. I like this.
My name is Edward Damian. I wanted to ask, regards to this human rights issue, has there been a correlation between human rights and consumer rights? Because then again, if you're looking at the issue of consumer rights, right? And I'm speaking to the person from Article 19. If we could look at human rights in relation to consumer rights, I think we'll be getting it right. A lot of times we speak about human rights, forget a lot about consumer rights. I'm seeing a big problem. And indeed, there are issues on consumer rights. Yes, consumer rights is part of human rights. But then which human rights are we talking about? I think that's a question we need to look at.
Thank you very much. Anybody with another question?
Hello, my name is Adib. I think I introduced myself earlier on. I'd like to ask Bob to probably just repeat the website for the ICANN document, so I can give it to you.
Okay, thank you. I request our panelists to please give us the answers. If you could start with Victor.
Thanks for the question. Mine was about access to internet and what we can do. A number of things. I think the first is that the Kenya Information Communication Act provides for the Universal Service Fund, which one of the things it's supposed to do is to ensure access in some of those areas. And I think, I don't know if someone from the authority here active. They need to activate that fund, which service providers contribute to, so that the networks can reach those places. Maybe if you want to expand on that, but also from the government side, I think there's at the county government stage, there are things they can do. Is it Nakuru where they want to do public Wi-Fi's, things like that, the things which they can do within the development budgets. And there's a whole budget process at the county level where people, if you come from one of those counties, then you can petition the county government to start making steps to also build infrastructure. There's also what the government can do as part of its development. The government was the national fiber optic infrastructure to also get to some of those counties so that they can also have fast internet. You could also go to court and sue the government for failing to implement this development mandate because we are saying that we shouldn't discriminate and everybody is entitled because we're all taxpayers. So infrastructure should get to everyone. So some of the things that we can do. And also petition parliament to legislative policy. If you have a line to the president, also the unions, sort of like lobbying policymakers to take steps to ensure all the things are provided.
Thank you.
I wasn't asking any question, but just to report that we will be engaging more on the business process, and we will be letting you know. Those of you who are not on KICTANet, please can request to be included in that subscription. But I want to say that we kinda are strict on who comes on that because it's a list of very distinguished people, and we don't want anyone to come and start antagonizing them. So we sort of control who joins. So if you would like to join, you can see me, but please know that we operate on ethics there. We don't bring any hate speech or that stuff that people do on social media. Thank you.
Thank you. On the question of minorities, diversity, marginalized groups, when we talk about marginalized groups, we talk about people on the periphery of society who have been sidelined from participating. So the principles seek to remember them in any kinds of internet policy implementation and development. So acknowledging that the internet is a platform through which they participate more in society, whether it's through the internet itself or through technology is reliant on the internet. So we see many communities, for example, using the internet to access greater markets where they would not have before, or communities able to access information that would have enabled them to participate more in society than they would have without the internet. In terms of human rights and consumer rights, the difference is that consumers pay. And so it's a right based on your ability to pay, whereas human rights are based on your entitlement to things just as a human being. So it's a broader framework through which to promote rights than consumer rights is. Because for as long as you're not paying, you're not considered, and that's why we like to think of to use the human rights-based framework, because it promotes equality and non-discrimination, because it seeks to it seeks to pay attention to even marginalized groups, gender issues. So that's why the focus is on human rights.
Thank you very much. Mine was very straightforward, so maybe I can answer it in 2 minutes. In the morning, I noted that one of the concerns that were being raised was same people in these crowds every now and then. And I think you cannot blame these same people. I think if we're having some people in this engagement, then I think it is the rest of us who have to blame. Today we were here, I think, over 100 of us, and if after this you disappear and you really never say anything or really don't engage, then really, even if we came with a gun, then we will not change. So what are we trying to say? This internet thing is a multi-stakeholder ecosystem. And one thing with multi-stakeholderism is it is most of the time voluntary. You really have to push yourself to do things there. Before, maybe later on you even get into leadership of those things. But there is a lot of leadership roles in that ecosystem, if people really care to be serious about it. But the first step is to really decide that you want to be part of it. This proposal that we're talking about has been developed by volunteers. And you can imagine the number of hours that, for example, Fiona is saying. I can tell you there are over 20,000 emails, over 400 mailing lists, over 400 meetings, and very few of these people really got paid. So it is hard, but that's the way it is in the internet. Now, for the other minute, the website is IANA. IANA is IANA-ICG.org. So that's the dedicated website for this transition group called the ICG. But you can also get all this information from ICANN website itself. So if you go to ICANN.org, ICANN is ICANN. You'll see a tab dedicated IANA transition. Yeah, but there's a dedicated tab for both processes. You go there, you have all information from the start of this process. Again, the onus is on us to read, which is really the challenge we have. So,
Thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Thank you very much, our very able panelists. The good thing about this panel is all of them did a follow-up. So, yes, I'm glad that the questions have come to an end, meaning that there's more communication going on. There are more emerging issues that have come up throughout the day. I'd like to see us discuss them online. And please, when they are posted online, please say something. When something is posted 2-3 days and nobody says something, it's very easy to pass it. Because from where I come from, silence means okay, tukosawa. So moving on to other things. So once again, my remarks are, let's get engaged, let's get involved, do not shy away. Just as Grace has said, there is etiquette. So please do not say something online that you won't tell me offline. What you can't tell me offline, please don't tell me online. So if we keep that spirit and we respect one another even online, then given the KICTANet list that is kind of restricted, you will be a part of it. I know some of us, when we joined the KICTANet, we kind of stayed behind trying to figure out sasa huyu vile ameandika huyu sasa anafanana namna gani, huyu anafanana namna gani, and then you come to a face-to-face meeting and you realize, kumbe it's you, now we can talk. So please do not shy away. One of the excitements that I have today is that there are 90% of new faces. I think 90% of the people seated here I've never seen, I've never met. And that is quite exciting, because I've been here, I think, for the last 10 years in this spheres of internet governance. I'm not yet retiring, I've just begun. So, set now, your space, but itabidi munisukume. You will have to push me out. But it is exciting. It is exciting to see that the Kenya Internet Governance Forum in the next 3 years will be run by totally new faces as we have new emerging issues. So just as Bob has said, it takes a lot of time, a lot of voluntary time, a lot of reading that you must do because you must respond with knowledge. Avoid asking those questions that Judy Okite will tell you, please Google, because that's what I'll tell you. That information, you can find it online. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you for being here with us. Finally, I would like to pass on the mic as we come to a conclusion. Thank you once again.